أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألف لام ميم ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون صدق الله العلي العظيم. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This morning we have our lecture titled Staying on the Path of Guidance, Past Reflections and Future Insights by Dr. Juman Kubba. Dr. Juman Kubba is a scientist and author. She got her bachelor degree from the University of Akron in Ohio and her master's and PhD from the University of California, Los Angeles. She's a member of the Society for Neuroscience and the American Association for the Advancement of Science. She has worked in the United States and internationally, and she currently resides in Florida. She is the author of multiple books and articles in English and in Arabic. She is the author and founder of the project HAMSA. She came to the United States in 1982. She participated in many religious education and worship events in Ohio, Utah, and California. She participated in the organization of the Muslim Groups Conference and local events throughout the 80s. We start now our lecture with Dr. Juman Kubba, but let's give it some salawat before we start. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And welcome to all of you to our second lecture today. And I hope you are all enjoying this conference, inshallah. So if anybody coming in, you can come closer since we don't have that many people. So you can, I can see you better. So I would like to begin by thanking the Muslim group for organizing this event, which is really important for our learning and our spiritual and educational well-being, and I really appreciate your coming here. So actually, I'm gonna take you on a journey into the past and the future because I would like to continue on what we talked about yesterday, and I don't know whether you attended my lecture on faith. So yesterday we talked a lot about personal aspects of faith. So today we're gonna talk what are we gonna do with the world around us. You know, we are not just sitting at home praying all the time. We have to interact with the world. So how are we going to do that, and what have we done in the past? So I'm going to share with you my experience from 40 years of being here in the United States. And so how do we manage our faith on a daily basis with people, and how do we make sure that our acts of worship merge with society that we live in. So inshallah, so can you see the slides okay? All right, great. So actually, we are gonna go from the personal, which we did yesterday, which was the faith and the spirituality, to the outside world, to the communication with society and dealing with the actual daily things that you deal with. So how we navigate the world while we are maintaining our faith. So basically, first I would like to say that we are all very grateful to be living here in the United States where we can practice our faith, alhamdulillah, freely. And that is something great, and we should be very grateful for. And actually, this is something that many people don't have, whether in Muslim countries or other countries in the world. So we are very grateful for that, alhamdulillah. So I'm going to talk about where we were before and what are the things that we have overcome, and some really important milestones. And inshallah, this will inspire those of you who are living here for, who are younger or who are born here to, to reach new heights and to carve a new pathway. So actually, this talk is kind of gonna have three main things. So we're going to talk about some important things from the past that are really the cornerstone of where we are today. So if it weren't for those things, we wouldn't be here today. And also I would like to talk about the current situation and where we stand today and what are the challenges that are facing us and how to deal with them in a practical way. In addition to, I want to give you some international perspective from my experience. A lot of the issues about Muslims have an international aspect to them, and I will talk a little bit about that. So first, let's go on a journey into the past a little bit. Not too much past, but just to get some reflection. So where we were, what are the challenges that we faced before? So actually, a lot of the things that I will say will probably surprise you, because many of them we all take for granted today, but they were not like that before. So let's talk about a story from the past. So actually, when I first came to the United States as a teenager in the early 1980s, so actually most of the people that we interacted with, they were foreign born, and so they came here as either as children or as adults. So most of us didn't really know anything about our rights or our, because we weren't born here, we had just come. So at least that's the people that I interacted with. I do acknowledge there are some communities that were here for a long time, but really their Muslim impact was minimal in a way. And as you know, this is a vast country, so I'm not talking about the whole, United States. I'm talking about what I saw and what represents actually many people's experience. So believe it or not, so the hijab, I want to talk about the hijab. So today we take it for granted. We are wearing the hijab and it's normal in most places. And even we are today, alhamdulillah, finding it even in senior government posts and senior political posts, we are finding the hijab, which is great. But it wasn't like that always. So the hijab was a really an issue. So first of all, I would like to really to thank Americans, American society at large, for accepting the hijab at that time. So actually, most Americans didn't know what is the hijab, and they assumed we were nuns. And I remember my sister and I, we attended a college, and the whole college was talking about us because we were the only two girls with hijab. And since we wore the same things, they assumed we had like a uniform. And they always assumed we were nuns. So everybody was asking us, and even outside in the supermarket or outside somewhere on the road, people are assuming we were nuns. And actually, I can say I was asked about the hijab, hundreds of times during those times, and in a very polite and kind manner. It was not disparaging or insulting in any way. It was very respectful and kind, and I really appreciate that about American society. They were very accepting, and they were curious. I mean, their questions were curious. Now that's, for the most part, I would say that's not 100%. Of course, there are people everywhere who are rude and unkind, but those were the exception. So that's really nice that the hijab was a new thing and it was accepted, and really that because a lot of Muslim girls and women, they stuck to their hijab. That's why we are here today, where hijab is normal. In the airports, in the jobs, everywhere, it has become something normal. And also I would like to say, with this positive thing that I said, also hijab was a contentious issue among the Muslim community itself, as many women and even men, they forced the females of their household to take off the hijab, and some women themselves and girls, they couldn't take the pressure of being looked at and stared at. So really it was a contentious issue among the people themselves, the Muslims. And then on a practical aspect, so I'm not being, judgmental on anybody, but it was an issue of debate among the Muslims themselves, the Muslim communities. And some people, adhere to the hijab and they took the pressure, and others didn't, and that's just the way it is. But actually, on a practical note, it was difficult for some women to actually get a driver's license with their hijab photo. Now, not all the states. Some states had this problem. Or where I lived, this didn't happen. But I am aware that in the 1980s, some women couldn't get their driver's license because of the hijab photo. They required that you cannot take the photo with the hijab. Alhamdulillah, that changed. I don't think that's true anywhere now in the United States, which is great, which shows that when you do something right, so I'm sure somebody, somewhere went and explained, this is our hijab, this is what we look like on a daily basis. This is not some sort of a costume that we wear and just for fun. So it's really nice that Americans respect that and they accommodate it. And I think this is not a problem for anybody today. Also, I would like to say that working in a job while you are wearing your hijab was an issue for many women. And many women, they took off their hijab because of the job. And very few of us, held on. And I was one of them, alhamdulillah. Since 1989, I started working with my hijab, and as I said, overall it was a positive experience, alhamdulillah. Most people are accepting and respecting, and it's ironic that sometimes you get more acceptance and respect from Americans than from the Muslims or the Arab community or the Muslim community, who tend to be more judgmental, and they try to put you down because okay, why are you so backwards? You are here in America now, so why don't you just blend in the society? So that's the reality. That's how it was like, so the hijab was really an issue, and alhamdulillah, some sisters and some families, they really held on, which is really good. Also, I would like to give you another maybe funny thing is about the halal meat, which was very scarce at that time. So we couldn't actually find halal meat, let alone halal restaurant. That was non-existent. But just to buy a meat, it wasn't possible in many parts of the United States. I'm not saying in everywhere, but that's how it was. And actually, I remember I was at that time living with my sister and brother, and we didn't have any meat for several months because we had to travel to Michigan, actually, to Dearborn, in order to buy it and put it in some sort of a freezer, those styrofoam freezer things, and bring it back with us. So it was a very cumbersome thing to do for young people. So we just didn't eat meat for several months. So we started to learn about eating fish and being vegetarian. So actually, these are all practical things that you deal with, And also, I also regret to say that even the halal meat became, at that time, a contentious issue among Muslims because it was a difficult thing to do. And of course, because our religion has a lot of softness and tolerance. Like if you are going to starve, you can eat, So a lot of people, they said, okay, well, we don't have halal meat. That's just the way it is. So we were going to eat the regular food. So many people chose to be that way, and others didn't. So I'm just giving you the reality. Alhamdulillah, none of that is true today. Things have changed a lot, and they are now a lot easier, alhamdulillah. And also this issue of the meat it was reflected again with the little kids in schools. So finding a school for your kids was a big challenge. So, you know, a lot of people wanted to have a Muslim, or at least some sort of, you know, a little bit of religious education. Like they didn't want their children to be exposed to the world at large the way it is. And so finding a Muslim school was really hard. Finding a good school was hard. And many people chose to go to Catholic schools or religious schools. However, that presented another problem with the diet for the little kids. You know, during lunch in the cafeteria, there isn't anything halal they can eat. So there were all these, like whenever I meet my peers who had just, you know, their kids that were little and they were just going to school. So all of this was a new experience, like none of us had had this experience before. And all sorts of people were saying, well, what can we do, you know? Well, the kids will be, you know, they have to eat, you know, what are they going to eat and stuff like that. So there were all these challenges, you know. These are not like, you know, these are not, maybe you find them really mediocre, but they're actually daily challenges that people had to deal with, you know, like if you are a mom and you have to deal with the food of your kids. So these were real issues. So finding the schools and also the food in the schools, and also another problem popped up, which is the way the history of Islam is taught in the schools really presented a problem for many kids. Kids were coming home crying because the teacher was saying horrible things about Muslims, you know, that Muslims are violent and Muslims are this. And this presented another problem, you know, for all these parents who are in this new terrain. They don't know anything about the system. Most of them were actually grown-ups who had come here and had their children here, and so this was an issue. So what I can say is that at that time, based on what I saw, many people solved these issues on a personal level. You know, they went to the school, they talked to the teacher, they asked the school if they could change the textbook, they asked the cafeteria if they could serve vegetarian food, etc., etc. So a lot of these problems were overcome gradually based on personal efforts. You know, people were striving and using the legitimate ways of communicating with the authorities to solve these issues, which is good. Now, maybe today you say, wow, this is not a big deal. We can find halal food. We can go wear our hijab. But actually, it wasn't like that. So really, it was hard for some kids and for some moms and dads when they were dealing with these issues. And even though I myself, you know, I was a teenager at that time, so it wasn't affecting me directly, but I really felt for my friends and peers who had children and who were older a little bit, and I tried, you know, to do my best to help them. But we were really practicing our, you know, problem-solving skills on a day-by-day basis, trying to solve these issues. So also another issue was in Ramadan, where we have exams and we have, you know, work and whatever, and so it took, you know, some time for people to you know, to make their coworkers or their professors know that, well, we are fasting. Is it possible if we postpone this activity, or can I come at a different time? All of these things were solved on a personal, you know, one by one level. And I remember in one case, my exam fell in the evening, like around 7 p.m. in the evening, my final exam, and it was Ramadan. And it's like, wow, I'm going to be, at that time the iftar was really late. Like I was living in Ohio at that time, so the iftar was around 8 o'clock, I think, or whatever. So I went on a personal, you know, level to the professor and said, well, can I change my exam to the morning? Because they had another version of the exam in the morning. So as you can see, we solved these issues on with personal effort. There was no systematic way to solve it. Now, alhamdulillah, later on, I think throughout the years, and as I moved to other states where they had larger communities, then we can see in some schools they even, I remember when I was at UCLA, they even in the 1990s they reserved a time for Jum'ah prayer, which is really nice. Like as a not a personal effort, as a systemic, at the school level. So that's really nice. And also, we had many organizations and many government agencies acknowledge Ramadan, acknowledge Eid al-Fitr. This all happened, gradually. And actually, we did a lot of effort where during the Eid, we took to our colleagues the cakes and the flowers, and we did a small celebration. So all of that, I believe, was the foundation of what we see today, alhamdulillah, of a lot of prayers and a lot of just a lot of activities that are normal. Also, I would like to say that a lot of Muslims and even non-Muslim Arabs, I think they changed their names. They were really trying to be accepted in societies. And not only women took off their hijab, even the women without hijab, they all tried to be blonde, they dyed their hair. They really wanted to fit in. What they missed out, unfortunately, is that this is a country that accepts people the way they are. Alhamdulillah, this is really great. And as you can see, there are many successful people around us today. So I would like, to thank all the Muslims who were here decades, even before me, decades ago, and who really established the foundations of the mosque or of the halal food or any effort that they did to make it easier for the ones who come, later. So alhamdulillah, we are in a good shape, and we want it to stay that way. We want to have, today it's normal to have hijab everywhere, in the airports, in the schools, in the hospitals, and anywhere, even in the government, we are finding women with hijab. So that's great, and that's really, I appreciate and thank every woman who is really standing with her hijab and, not giving up quickly under the smallest pressure. So we move on to the current situation where we are. As you know, the world changes, and this country changes, and the dynamics of the world are changing. So today we have actually a new set of challenges, and many of you are going to be dealing with that. So let's look at where we are today and what's yet coming towards us that we have to overcome. So actually, I think we all, so I'm going to talk about 4 things that are currently really concerning. So the Islamophobia that exists now in many parts of the world also exists here. And although there are many laws and regulations that protect all religions, and and even recently there was, I think, Congress passed some sort of at least in the House, I think it was passed against the Islamophobia. However, you cannot remove the Islamophobia from the hearts of people. It exists. That's just the way it is. So as I mentioned in a previous lecture with the youth the other day, so actually we can counter that by 2 ways, and I have found really successful. Not so much to countering, it wasn't, in my case, it wasn't so much Islamophobia, but it was really being accepted by the society at large. Is first, we have to keep our good manners, good Islamic manners, so people know they trust us at the job, at the bank, at the wherever we are, at the school. So people trust us. They know that we don't steal, we don't cheat. So that's a really good thing, alhamdulillah. So that actually is like a credit that you have as a Muslim person, because we have the manners of Islam that really guide our behavior. So that's good. And also when you are adhering to your faith, people actually respect that. And so, as I mentioned, I have been asked hundreds of times about the hijab, which is really nice, but also about not eating the pork, about not drinking. I mean, hundreds of times I've answered that question. So actually people respect that. They don't look down upon it. It's probably the opposite in many Muslim countries where they look down upon you if you say, I well, I follow the halal things, but actually the people respect that. So that could work also in countering the Islamophobia. So the Islamophobia is, even though there are laws against it, but actually it exists in some people's hearts. That's just the way it is. So we can counter it by the good manners, by the good behavior. So the al-ayah al-karima, وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. So even when somebody is rude to us, of course we have to protect ourselves and, to use the legitimate means to protect ourselves, but also not to use this idea from the Quran. Is somebody is attacking you or insulting you, try to be better and not to be, try to control your emotions, as we were saying yesterday. Also, it's not just the Islamophobia at large, but also sometimes it affects our personal safety. So many of us are afraid, for our property or our children or our own safety. And many people, unfortunately, we've heard of many Muslims, that were attacked after 9/11 or throughout the years. And even it happened to me personally. I was attacked verbally by someone a few years back. And actually, I reported it to the police as a hate crime. So we have to use whatever legal and lawful ways for us to protect ourselves. But also we try to counter the hatred using the good manners and the akhlaq of the Islam and the akhlaq of Ahlul Bayt. Also, the third issue, which is also very concerning, is that societies are changing all over the world, and there are a lot of things that are happening that are probably against our belief. A lot of the social and the family issues. So we can focus on, preserving what we want and what we can. So we maybe we cannot stop every wrong thing in the world that is around us, but at least let's protect our own conduct and our own families and our children and our communities, which is allowed to be so. So even though, for example, a lot of the issues that are dividing really American society also, that are dealing with the family and with reproductive rights and issues of that nature, we have the right to be the way we are and to protect our lifestyle. It is within the laws, and it is something that we can do here. So even though society is changing and a lot of the norms are changing, not just here, all over the world actually, but we don't have to go along with that. We can maintain our faith and the guidelines of our faith, and a lot of Christians are doing that, and we can do that too. And so we shouldn't come under any pressure to change the way we are, just to fit in. And if you really think about it, it's kind of the same of what I just said earlier about the past. A lot of people gave up a little bit. They gave up the hijab, they gave up their name, they gave up the halal meat to fit in. But guess what? The society will demand from you to give up more things. They will probably ask you to give up prayer or give up marriage or whatever, and just have a free relations, just like some communities are doing actually in some states. So we don't have to do that. We have the right to be the way we are and practice our faith, and alhamdulillah, that's really good. And also the other issue that I would like to mention, and both of the third and actually all of those four issues, these are especially important if we have any people, especially young people, who are, specializing their careers in law or in policy, foreign policy or domestic policy. So you really need to be aware of these issues. Now, I know in my generation, actually everybody, every person probably, if we do a survey today in this conference, all the older people are either into medicine, science, or engineering or business. And I don't think you'll find anybody who pursued law or, policy or that sort of thing. So I hope the young people will flip that. As I mentioned in the previous workshop, that we really need Muslims to pursue fields like journalism and policy and issues that affect all of us, not just affect the health of some people or the business of others and so on. So actually, so the fourth issue regarding the foreign policy today with Muslim countries. So actually we have the right to have a say in our foreign policy as citizens, lawful citizens of this country. So we are taxpayers, and so we can through the normal means, through contacting our representatives and through, inshallah, through some youth who are probably forming some organizations. So a lot of our policy is actually, and not just US policy, but also international organizations are really forcing things on Muslim societies that are contrary to Islam and contrary to the traditions of those countries. I'm just give you an example. In most Muslim countries, for example, abortion is legal only for medical purposes. When there is a medical reason, it is legal. It is not legal for just for the fun of it. Today you decided you don't want to be pregnant anymore. It's not legal that way. So, but it is legal for medical purposes. Well, guess what? A lot of international organizations and international, what they call the treaties, or they call them, I don't know what they're called in English exactly, like agreements or مواثيق الدولي. Yeah. So those things are really forcing Muslim countries to change their laws. So actually, we have a say in this. This is our tax money is participating in this. So we can do that through the normal ways that we do here in America. We contact our representatives. We form groups that oppose these things because actually, a lot of our tax money goes in the form of foreign aid, foreign aid that goes to many countries. And through this foreign aid, we see a lot of conditions. So the governments of many Muslim countries receive the aid on condition that you change this law or that law, which is really terrible. I have seen that firsthand in several Muslim countries, and actually the consequences are really bad. And our societies are, even though I'm personally and all as Muslims we are against abortion unless it's for medical purposes. But here in this country we respect the law. The law allows it, and that's just the way it is. But I don't think we should be imposing that on other countries. Especially it's our tax money that's being used for that. So these are issues that we can think about. And actually I would like to refer to, maybe later on I will refer to a document that some of you may have heard of. It's the abbreviation of it is CEDAW. It's اتفاقية CEDAW. It's a CEDAW. It's an acronym. Well, this اتفاقية is or agreement. It's an international agreement. It's purely being imposed on Muslim countries, and actually, ironically, the United States opposed most of the items in that document, but on Muslim countries are just accepting it blindly just because they are receiving aid as a result of accepting these things. And these things destroy the family structure. For example, they're not only legalizing abortion, but also legalizing like children who are out of wedlock, so legalizing their status. So as you know, in most Muslim countries, these status are not legal as a deterrent. It's a deterrent so that you don't engage in that conduct. So these issues, I hope, I'm not trying to solve these issues here now, but I'm saying, inshallah, there are among us, there are people who are going to be lawyers and policymakers, and so we should, these are challenges that we are going to be facing. Also, so how we handle these current challenges is, as we said, first things first. So inshallah, we all try to improve our knowledge, not just in our career, but also, as I said, knowledge around us, knowledge about laws, about regulations that are happening. And we should really increase our knowledge by learning in general, reading books. As you know, knowledge in the Islam is very important. عَلَّمَ الْإِنسَانَ مَا لَمْ يَعْلَمْ. And also knowing about the issues that are facing our community. Also, try to be confident. And as I said yesterday, the Iman makes us strong. So even if somebody gives you a hate speech or some joke about your hijab or whatever, it will not affect you because you're strong. So don't worry, you have done great things, and we have achieved great things, and we are a good part of this society. So these are all great things. And actually, our identity, our Muslim identity, is a positive thing. It's not like in some of the lectures we heard yesterday with Sayyida, I think, he said a lot of people are shy to say that they're Muslims. Of course, for us with the Muslim women with hijab, it's out in the open. So we are sort of at the front line of this. So, mashallah, stay confident and, continue to build your knowledge and your high spiritual strength. So our spirituality. So let me do spirituality first. So our spirituality is, as we said yesterday, it brings us closer to God, gives us strength. So even when somebody is attacking you, you can maintain calmness because you know what Allah said, لا تهنوا ولا تحزنوا وأنتم الأعلون. So you say that to yourself and you feel really great. So our spirituality is really good. It strengthens us, as we said, and especially when we are out in the real life, not just at home praying. That's one thing. We are building ourselves at home. But when we go out in the world, we're actually experiencing all sorts of challenges. So to go back, so we strengthen our spirituality, we strengthen our knowledge, and also participate in the community with all the lawful means that are allowed to us here. So, for example, all of us, I have done that. We can contact our political leaders, our representatives. We can go and visit them and present an issue that's facing us. We can write to them. Actually, we have done that in the past, writing and visiting. And I hope that the younger generation will take it even a step further and maybe form a lobbying group, form an organization that can, push certain policies. Also, I hope that especially the younger people, you can create your own organizations or participate in existing organizations such as this one, and also cooperate with other people and other groups. And also, as we said yesterday, on a personal level, challenge is going to bring us closer to God. It's going to make us endure more. Well, in real life, challenge also makes us smarter. We find ways to solve problems. So if you are unchallenged, then you will never, be creative. But when you have these challenges, so there's no halal food here. Those were the smaller challenges maybe before. Actually, they're not that small because you have to eat at some point. So now when you have we have all these new challenges that I just mentioned: the Islamophobia, we are afraid for our safety, the changing world around us, and how to fit in and maintain our values. These are all challenges, and inshallah, we will find ways to deal with them. And also, so we already did that. So as you can see here, so I can't really point from here. So we have challenges, but we want to build our spiritual strength and our knowledge and our confidence. So the three things at the top really make us very strong. They will enable us to participate in the society. Remember, here today I'm talking about participation at large, not just the personal aspect. So that's, I hope that you can keep that in mind as you are facing new challenges. And finally, I would like to talk about some international issues. As you know, as I said, we are really grateful that we can practice our faith here. It is not the case for many Muslim countries are having a lot of problems. So in addition to the wars and the migration issues, which is very sad, which is making us also very sad because many of those people are our relatives, are our friends, or people that we know, and they are human beings who are suffering. So we all would like to help, and so it's a challenge to formulate organizations that are legitimate, legal, and that can actually transfer the money to those people. So this is a challenge that we have to deal with. Also, as you know, there are a lot of anti-Islam policies in many countries worldwide, and I'm sure you hear about the hijab being fought in many countries and being banned gradually from schools and from jobs. And I really feel like we're going backwards in the world, you know. Like, it reminds me of even though I wasn't born then, in the 1950s and 40s, when the hijab was not allowed in many parts of even the Muslim countries. You know, they were, it was, you know, like many of us who were alive in the 70s in Muslim countries, hardly you saw any hijab at that time. So it seems that the world is going backwards and creating all these anti-hijab policies in schools and in work and so on. So we have to find ways of supporting women everywhere in the world who want to wear their hijab. And also I regret to say that a lot of Muslim countries are having the ilhad, you know, they are turning away from religion, and that's why we really need to make this here, the Muslims here in the United States, like a shining light to keep the faith, because you know, there are a lot of political and economic factors that are you know, contributing to people to the really social disintegration of societies. So I hope some of you are or will be working in policy or you know, foreign affairs or international law, where you will be dealing with these issues directly. Also, a lot of anti-faith policies. So a lot of actually Muslim countries, they're banning the adhan, they're banning the parts of the Quran. Just imagine, it's like we're going back to the dark ages, you know. So this is really dangerous, and so I hope that through our efforts here we can, you know, prevent that or stop that. And also, I want to say in general that my experience here in the United States has been positive for the most part, you know, like the overwhelming part of it has been positive and good, and really have found a lot of kindness from Americans and a lot of acceptance. As I mentioned before, I have gone to some office parties with my husband, and we asked for a table without alcohol, and they did that for us. And you know, I have gone to some parties at people's homes. You know, they invite us for Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever, and I tell them that, you know, we don't eat pork, so they make some vegetarian food for us. So it's a lot of kindness, a lot of acts of kindness. So really, where we stand today, we need to think more on a systemic level now, because we need to make a lot of things into policies. I would like to share with you some ideas that I have that are really important to me, and I hope maybe to be able to collaborate with some of you. So we talked about science yesterday and the day before, and actually science, it's not only the science in the Quran issue, that's beautiful knowledge to know, but also actually correcting the science textbooks. I, as a science professor, I've dealt with many textbooks, and literally I've told all my students the first page of the book is wrong, because all the science textbooks, they say, well, you know, during the times of the Greeks and the Egyptians, there was whatever, this practice of science, and then nothing happened until the 17th or 16th centuries, where so-and-so discovered this and that. So they completely and absolutely deny the Muslim contribution to science. So inshallah, I'm working to change that. Of course, So I'm building my own knowledge of Muslim science. That's why I gave you this bibliography yesterday. I hope everybody will be reading those, because actually we need to correct the science books to reflect, to say that no, during this 1,000 years of history, there were a lot of scientific. So inshallah, what I plan to do is maybe have 100 scientists sign a letter to the American Association of the Advancement of Science, of which I'm a member, and hopefully make a real policy, a real statement that we want the books to be corrected. So that's one thing that I'm working on personally. Inshallah, I will collaborate with you. Also, I would like to remind you of the importance of the Arabic language, not only in science and astronomy, but also in military and naval what you call them, affairs or techniques. So the words like admiral and arsenal are actually Arabic words. Words of astronomy like zenith and azimuth are Arabic words. So we need to propagate this knowledge to the world, and I hope, as I mentioned to you, I hope the young people will take this a step further and make it into something more, not just a post on Facebook, but something more solid. And also, I would like to say that, inshallah, I hope that people who are in college or who have large, contact with communities to start Quranic readings with non-Muslims. This would be very beautiful. And also, I think we should support women and girls with hijab. Actually, I just want to share with you that several years ago, I wrote a book about hijab, and it was before all of this internationalization of the hijab problem. But just believe it or not, my book was declined. It wasn't published, but the person who gave it a bad review was a Muslim woman who hates the hijab, but she is an expert on, women studies or women affairs or whatever. So they gave her the book to review it, and she just hated it, and she wrote a terrible review. So I wasn't able to publish it. So all what I'm trying to say is we need to use all the means possible to support women with hijab internationally, not just here with our communities and encouraging the girls and the women who have the hijab, but also internationally. So inshallah, I will try to redo the book, now that with all the new things. And also, of course, as I said, we should counter the hate and the phobia with knowledge. Also, I mentioned earlier about the international agreements. So I do have a document. It's 700 pages long, so I can't just pass it around. But if anybody is interested in these issues of women and international agreements, I can email it to you, and you will see how it is very destructive to family structure. And even Christians are against it, not just Muslims. So we need to, I hope there are people in this room or in this community who are interested in law or international policy and who will be active in these, in these areas. And finally, I would like to say there is a new year coming, inshallah, in a few days. So I hope that we all make a challenge to ourselves to read at least one page of the Quran per day. And if you can't, maybe every other day. And also learn the tafsir at least of one ayah per week, and also maybe read a new dua every month. And thank you very much. Thank you for attending this lecture.